And let's just do that. Hey guys. I think I'm live. I've been having some technical difficulties trying to get this going. It's been about 45 minutes I've spent at my computer trying to figure out why this platform wasn't working. So if any of you are out there right now in the chat and can let me know if this is actually going out to my platforms, I would greatly appreciate it. It would help me so much. This is going to be my third installment of my Raw and Real series. And yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't say that my heart is beating out of my chest right now. There's a lot of fear coming through, and thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Okay, good. I'm glad it's working. So yeah, it's a lot of fear coming up right now. In fact, what I want to share with you guys is what has been surfacing for me since I started this series back in November. And I've been wanting to connect with the memory, the part of me that I've suppressed and repressed at the age of 5. Thanks, Greg. Good to see you here. And I been doing a lot of work with my inner child to really connect with that. And just before, about a week leading up to the last Akashic Records session that I had with my friend Rebecca, where I got more information and confirmation on what I saw in my own Akashic experiences in my meditation. About a week leading up to that, my back, right over my kidneys, really started to tighten up. And it got really, really sore to the point where I was pretty certain if I had turned the wrong way really quickly, my whole back would have gone out. And I know enough about the body that the kidneys is where we store a lot of fear. And I knew my body was definitely picking up on the fear that I knew I was getting really close to discovering what it is that I had been suppressing for over 35 years. And this, I don't know if you guys are really into astrology, but we've just had our huge Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and I've gone over this a lot with everyone in my alchemy program. We've been talking about it since I basically started the program. And the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is one of the most soul-transforming, deepest alchemical processes we go through of all the transits. And so it only happens about every 35-ish years or so. And interestingly enough, the last time this Saturn-Pluto conjunction happened was when I was 5 years old, when this actually happened. And so the reason why this has been really surfacing for me, especially to share this right now with all of you, is because I can't take it anymore into my future. I can't take this fear. I can't take the fear of not knowing. And there's a lot of healing that has to happen here. And I have to bring that part of me that I've completely shut out because the memory is too painful. I had to bring it back in. So, hi, Mary. Hi, Matthew. And so, oh gosh. All right, let's just go for it. So, I was maybe a week or two ago, I was kind of pulled one of my old journals out from 2016 where I was documenting a lot of my meditations. And one in particular, I just kind of opened my book to, and it was one where I had written down one of my meditations that I had with my inner child. And in that meditation, her and I had climbed a tree, and we were sitting on a huge limb in some like majestical forest. And I used to climb a lot of trees when I was a kid. And so her and I are just sitting on this huge limb, and she turns around to me, and she looks at me and she asks me, "Are we okay?" And she was referencing me in the future, like asking, like, are we okay in the future? And I looked at her and I said, of course we're okay. We're absolutely fine. You have nothing to worry about. And she looks at me and she says, do I do anything bad? And when I read this about a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I just broke down into tears, much like I am right now, because I know that that was a foreshadowing of what I was about to find out a few weeks ago, about a month ago. And as I've told many of you, there's been a lot of fears coming up to the surface since late October when I went in for a pelvic exam to just check to see if everything was okay. And all of this fear started to overtake me, and I felt like I was 6 years old. And all of these emotions started to surface about wanting to not be alone, like feeling like I was alone, feeling unsafe. And those emotions have helped me uncover something that happened to me. And I've recently discovered that a family member who is not in my direct natal line, so it's not an immediate uncle or grandparent or anything, but it's someone directly related to them. And I don't really want to go into the details here on a public platform, but when I was 5, at a family gathering, I was taken by this man into the house when everyone was outdoors. And he took me somewhere where no one else could see us. And I remember having the feeling starting to surface of not understanding why I was being hidden, and having those emotions, this confusion of feeling kind of tucked away, cornered away from people. And he proceeded to touch me in places no 5-year-old should ever have been touched. And at 5 years old, I knew that it would break my parents' hearts. I knew it would break my grandparents' hearts. And so I decided to keep it in because I didn't want to cause anyone any pain. And I didn't tell anyone. And I had to bury that incident really deep down to forget about it. And this has recently been surfacing because these feelings of not feeling safe and feeling abandoned, like I had mentioned in my last 2 videos, that I wasn't feeling safe and I had completely abandoned my inner child and completely disconnected with her because that memory was too painful to carry, and I just had to pretend like it didn't exist. And so I'm creating situations in my current life where I'm either completely abandoning myself or creating relationships where I feel like I don't exist, or an incident happens where I feel like I don't exist. And I want to bring more stability back into my life. And so a lot of healing has had to happen at this level. And it's been an interesting journey as I've kind of made this revelation. I was, working with my inner child, I talk about this so much. It's one of the most profound ways to receive healing. It will expedite your healing in the most rapid way unlike anything else that you can do. And that's why I'm such a huge advocate for inner child healing and reconnecting with the parts of us that we've abandoned or tucked away because it was just too painful to deal with at the time. And she took me into my Akashic Records. Like I told you guys on my last Akashic Records video, she brought me into the Akashic Records recently, and she started giving me information. And she gave me the initial of the person who had done this to me. And she told me that it was a man. And the initial that she gave me, I couldn't connect with anyone in my family because there was no one in my immediate family that had that initial that would relate to someone who could do this to me. And so I thought maybe I had been making it up, but luckily when I had a deeper Akashic Records session, the name came out, or at least a very close resemblance of the name, and I quickly, instantly remembered who it was. And she's been helping me remember, and mostly it's the emotions coming through. And I know that I've been talking and being a little bit more of an advocate for bringing awareness to a lot of the shadow aspects of our society, such as pedophilia. And it's because of the things that I'm discovering through my own healing that I feel is very important to bring light to, because we absolutely cannot move forward in truth if we're not willing to face the most darkest aspects of ourselves. And that means when we go into a collective perspective, what's happening in our society. And if we want to heal completely, we absolutely have to shine truth where a lot of us don't want to look because it's terrifying and it's really ugly. And so she's been just helping me connect with the emotions, and I find that as I'm researching more information, it brings up a lot of my own emotions. And then when I'm in meditation, sometimes these emotions just come to the surface of just feeling really scared and really alone and not understanding why someone would do this to a child. Sometimes the anger and rage comes up inside of me, and I honor it, because I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make when they're going through their own healing is, and on any spiritual level, is that we spiritually bypass our anger because it's an ugly emotion, and there's a lot of negative association with it, that to be angry is somehow a bad thing. But if something like this has happened to you, you have every right to feel your anger. And interestingly enough, it's coming up in a lot of my coaching sessions with many of you who I'm working with right now. The anger is surfacing, and it's because the only way to get through to the forgiveness is to move through the anger. And so yeah, this has just been a really difficult one for me to go through. And it's as scary as it is, there is an incredible amount of liberation attached to this. There are times where I feel absolutely excited and confident and free and relieved. Relief is probably one of the biggest feelings that I'm going through, for finally knowing what I didn't want to know. And I also, because I've shared this story with everyone in my alchemy program on our live call a week and a half ago, some of you guys have already shared with me that you've gone through very similar things. And I think it's important to understand that sexual abuse, even at a very young age for children, is way more common than we're giving light to. And so if this can help anyone to know, if you've gone through any of these sorts of things or this sort of trauma, know that connecting with your inner child is the way out. It's the way out of this valley of darkness that many of us are walking through when we go to visit our shadow aspects of ourselves and feel very alone on that journey. Connecting with your small self, okay? That little boy or that little girl within you, and really bringing them back home after pushing them away because the trauma was too intense, too painful to deal with at such a young age. You know, when we're that young, we're very limited with our coping abilities with such things. Even as adults, for this sort of trauma to happen, it's difficult to deal with. So as a young child, we don't have much coping abilities other than to bury it really, really deep. And so I would implore a lot of you to go within and face the fears and gently, compassionately allow that information to slowly come in at the rate that it needs to for you. Like as for me, it took me a couple months to slowly let it in, and I had to take it in small doses. But it's a very liberating feeling when you can, and I feel that there's a lot clearing from my body as well, on a physical level, but also on an emotional and mental and spiritual level as well. So I just wanted to thank you guys so much for your support. I know last night I put out on YouTube that I was really scared. I was crying last night. I was petrified of sharing this story because I'll be very honest, I haven't even shared it with my family yet. And I guess part of me just wants to spare them the pain. I think about myself being a parent one day, and to know my child went through something like this, it would just break me. And so, yeah. So, I just want to thank all of you for being here on the chat. I've kind of missed some of your comments here. I'm just reading through them always right now. But Mary and Matthew and Karena, Sasha, David, thank you so much for being here. Trisha, Free Press. I just thank you so much. I'm going to read your comments after. But guys, thanks so much for being so supportive. You all send me incredible messages, emails, your comments. They all give me some of the courage and strength that I've needed to do some of this. I know not all of us have platforms to speak our truth, and it's a very difficult thing sometimes to be able to use our voice in such a public manner. I'm not saying that we all have to go on a public platform and say this to the world, but I have this platform and I'm comfortable using it. And so if there's any way that any of this information can be helpful, then I'm happy to do it. So thank you guys for being here, and thanks for being part of this vulnerability series. It's allowing me to discover parts of myself that I didn't know were there, bringing things back in and allowing me to see how beautiful and strong vulnerability actually is. Okay, I love you guys.